All right, so we've got a lot to cover today about this potential shakeup in the world of XR.
Yeah, it seems like Google and Samsung are really trying to take on Apple and Meta this time.
You sent me a bunch of articles about this new partnership.
Oh, yeah, I thought these were particularly interesting.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Google, they haven't really had the best track record with this kind of thing.
Well, right, remember Google Glass?
Oh, yeah.
That didn't really, take off the way they hoped.
Not at all. I mean, it kind of became a punchline.
But this time, it seems like they're really coming in with a very different approach.
Yeah, what is it about this new partnership that makes it different?
Well, I mean, first of all, you've got Samsung on board, and they've got, a ton of experience making great hardware.
Right. They know how to make things that people actually want to use.
Exactly. And then on the software side, they've completely revamped Android for this, made a whole new version that's specifically for XR.
So that's Android XR.
Yeah. And and that's laying the foundation for everything.
Okay, so new hardware, new software, anything else?
Well, the biggest wild card here, I think, is Gemini, Google's new AI.
Ah, yeah, that's right. Okay, so we're going to really try to figure out what all of this new tech can actually do,
Yeah.
why this time it might actually matter, and if they really have a shot at making this thing a success.
Yeah, those are the big questions.
Let's start with Project Moohan, which seems to be their answer to Apple's Vision Pro.
Yeah, a high-fidelity mixed reality headset.
So kind of like ski goggles, but way more high tech.
Yeah, that's the basic design. It's running on Qualcomm's Snapdragon XR2 Plus Gen 2 processor and using Android XR.
Okay, and how does it stack up against the Vision Pro, specs-wise?
I mean, it's hard to say for sure until it's actually released,
Hmm.
but the early reports suggest it's going to be pretty comparable in terms of performance.
Okay, but the price is going to be significantly lower than the Vision Pro.
Yeah, significantly, which could be huge. That $3,500 price tag for the Vision Pro,
Ooh, yeah.
that's a real barrier to entry for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned Android XR. What exactly is that? Is it just regular Android, but for XR?
It's more than that. It's a version of Android that's really designed from the ground up for a spatial computing environment.
Okay, so what does that mean exactly?
So it's optimized for 3D interactions, hand tracking, all the things that are unique to XR devices.
Interesting.
And one of the really interesting things about Android XR is that theoretically, any Android app could work on these devices.
Oh, okay, so they're tapping into that massive existing Android ecosystem.
Exactly. That could be a huge advantage right out of the gate.
Definitely. So I was reading the Wired article, and they actually got to try out a prototype of the Moohan headset.
Oh, yeah. What'd they think?
They were pretty impressed. They said the visuals are really sharp, the hand and eye tracking are smooth, and the interface for interacting with apps like YouTube and Google Maps in 3D is really slick.
Yeah, I saw that. They highlighted this really cool feature with Google Photos where you can view any photo in 3D, even ones taken with old cameras.
Oh, wow. Like it creates the depth.
Yeah, the AI guesses the depth based on the image, and apparently it's surprisingly good.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, imagine looking at old family photos and experiencing them in 3D.
Yeah, that'd be really something.
But let's move on to the other big piece of this, the smart glasses. So it seems like Google Glass is back, but with a bit of a makeover.
Yeah, they've definitely learned from their past mistakes.
So what's different this time around?
Well, for one thing, the design's a lot sleeker. They're more like the Meta Ray-Ban Wayfarer collaboration, much more discreet.
Okay, so less like cyborg looking.
Right, exactly. And they're more powerful, of course.
I bet.
And more importantly, they're deeply integrated with Gemini.
Oh, right, the AI.
Yeah.
Okay, and it looks like they're offering a few different configurations for the glasses.
Yeah, you can get them with no display at all for the monocular display on one lens, or with a full binocular display for a more immersive experience.
Okay, so a range of options depending on how much you want to be
Yeah.
plugged in. But what really has people talking is how Gemini interacts with the real world. That Wired article had some pretty mind-blowing examples.
Like what?
Well, they were talking about how you could point your glasses at a painting and get an instant art history lesson,
Oh, wow.
or translate a street sign just by looking at it, or even caption real-world conversations for people with hearing loss.
That's incredible. It really shows how Gemini goes beyond just voice commands.
Right. It's not just about telling it what to do. It's about having an AI that can understand your intent and interact with the world around you in a really intuitive way.
Yeah, that's the key.
It seems like Gemini is the glue that holds all of this together, both for the headset and the glasses.
It's the brain behind it all.
But can they actually deliver on this? I mean, Google has had some pretty high-profile flops in the past.
Yeah, that's a valid concern. And it's not just Google. The whole XR market is still relatively young and unproven.
I mean, even Apple is having trouble selling the Vision Pro.
Exactly. So the big question is, can Google and Samsung convince people that strapping computers to their faces is actually the next big thing?
And how do they avoid the pitfalls that plagued Google Glass?
Well, I think it comes down to a few key factors: price, usefulness, and privacy. Those are going to be crucial.
Especially the privacy part, right? People are already wary of having cameras and microphones constantly pointed at them.
Yeah, they need to address those concerns head on this time.
Definitely. Okay, so we've got this potentially groundbreaking tech, but a lot of challenges to overcome.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride.
For sure. Let's dive into those challenges a bit deeper in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good to me. Okay, so we were talking about challenges, but I think it's important to step back and think about the potential impact of these new XR devices, especially with Gemini as the driving force here.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't just about strapping computers to our faces, right? This could really change the way we interact with information and the world around us.
Exactly. It's about blurring the lines between the physical and digital in a way that we've never really seen before.
I mean, some of the stuff they're talking about is straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Right. Like, remember that circle to search feature they mentioned in the Wired article?
Yeah, where you can just like circle something in your field of view and Gemini pulls up relevant information about it.
I mean, how cool is that? You could be walking down the street, see a cool building, circle it with your finger, and boom, you've got the history, the architect, everything.
That would be incredible for education, too. Imagine a student wearing these glasses during a lecture.
Oh, yeah.
They could just glance at a diagram or an artifact and instantly get more information about it.
Or a medical student, right.
Yeah?
They could be looking at a patient and have anatomical diagrams overlaid right on top of them.
That would be amazing for hands-on learning.
It's not just about passively consuming information either.
Right.
Gemini's ability to understand our intent and interact with the real world opens up all sorts of possibilities for creative problem solving.
So it's not just about looking things up, it's about actually doing things in the real world with the help of this AI.
Exactly. And because it understands context, it can anticipate your needs and offer suggestions that you might not have even thought of.
Yeah, like the Wired article talked about asking Gemini to describe a painting in another language.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
I mean, that could be huge for travel. Imagine being able to instantly translate signs, menus, conversations just by looking around.
Yeah, or imagine an architect designing a building in 3D with Gemini, assisting with calculations and adjustments in real time.
Or a musician composing music in a spatial environment, surrounded by virtual instruments.
It's almost like having this hyper-intelligent assistant constantly learning and adapting to your needs.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
Yeah, it's really exciting, but we also have to be realistic about the challenges.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think some of the biggest hurdles are going to be?
Well, one of the big ones is going to be getting developers to create apps for this new platform.
Right, because without a good selection of apps, these devices are pretty much just expensive toys.
Exactly. And then there's the question of adoption.
Yeah, I mean, will people actually want to use this stuff?
Even Apple is struggling to sell the Vision Pro.
That's true. So how do they convince people to embrace this technology?
Well, I think part of it's going to be about showcasing the truly compelling use cases, the things that you can do with XR that you just can't do with any other technology.
Right, it can't just be a gimmick.
No, it has to offer real value.
And it has to be user-friendly.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to wear something that's clunky and uncomfortable.
And then, of course, there's the privacy issue.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one. People are already pretty sensitive about having cameras and microphones pointed at them all the time.
And with Gemini constantly gathering information about our surroundings and our behavior,
Right.
it's going to be even more important to be transparent about how that data is being used.
Yeah, for sure. Transparency is key.
So the partnership between Google and Samsung could be a major factor here, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, Google has the software and AI expertise, and Samsung is great at hardware.
They each bring something really important to the table.
They'll need to work together very closely to make sure these devices are not only technologically advanced, but also user-friendly and, well, aesthetically pleasing.
Right, because nobody wants to wear something that makes them look like a cyborg.
Especially after the whole Google Glass debacle.
Oh, yeah, that definitely left a mark.
I mean, a lot of the backlash against Google Glass was about how creepy it felt to be recorded without your knowledge.
Yeah, and how weird those glasses look.
Exactly. So they really need to overcome that stigma this time around.
I think they're aware of that. The Wired article mentioned that the new glasses have an LED that lights up when the camera is active.
Oh, that's good. At least people will know when they're being recorded.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
But they need to go further than that,
Right. They need to be very clear about how they're collecting and using data.
especially given Google's track record.
What do you mean?
Well, Google already collects a ton of data on its users, and there's this perception that they're not always careful or transparent about how they use it.
Yeah, that's true.
So they're going to need to be extra careful with this new technology.
Right. They need to build trust.
Exactly.
It's a tough balance, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they need to collect enough data to make Gemini effective, but they also need to respect user privacy.
It's a tricky situation for sure. And it really gets to the heart of the question of whether they can pull this off.
Yeah, it's a big gamble.
It is. But the potential rewards are enormous. If they can convince people that XR is more than just a fad, that it's a truly transformative technology, they can reshape the entire computing landscape.
It's going to be fascinating to watch this all unfold. Will they succeed, or will they become another cautionary tale of tech ambition gone wrong?
I don't know. It's hard to predict the future.
Yeah, that's for sure. So what's your gut feeling? Are you optimistic about this new wave of XR?
I'd say I'm cautiously optimistic. The technology is incredibly exciting, but there are definitely some big hurdles to overcome.
Yeah, like we've been talking about the privacy concerns, the app ecosystem, and just convincing people that this is something they actually want in their lives.
Right. Those are all going to be key factors.
It's definitely going to be an interesting ride, but I think it's also worth taking a moment to just imagine what a future with ubiquitous XR might look like.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the really exciting part.
What if these devices become as commonplace as smartphones?
How would that change the way we work, the way we learn, the way we communicate, the way we experience the world?
It's mind-boggling to think about.
It really is. And it's a future that's worth thinking about seriously.
You know, it's kind of funny how much we focus on the tech itself with XR, the specs, the features, all that.
Yeah, but it all comes down to the human element in the end, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be something people actually want to use.
Exactly. And it's got to be something that they feel comfortable using.
Right.
I mean, like we talked about the privacy concerns, the whole creepiness factor of having cameras and microphones pointed at you all the time. But are there other potential downsides we should consider? Like, what about our attention spans?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, we're already struggling with information overload and digital distraction.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to become even more detached from the physical world?
It's a real possibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we're already, like, halfway there
Yeah, exactly.
with our phones and everything.
Yeah. But on the flip side, some experts say XR could actually help us reclaim our attention
Also.
by filtering out distractions and presenting information in a more focused way.
Interesting. So instead of being bombarded with notifications and ads all the time,
Yeah.
you'd only see what's relevant to you that moment.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it's a nice thought, but I guess we'll have to see how it plays out in practice.
It's definitely something to keep an eye on. And what about our social interactions? I mean, imagine going to a family gathering and everyone's wearing a headset, lost in their own virtual worlds.
Oh, wow.
Would it bring people closer together, or would it just create even more distance?
That's a really good question.
I mean, it's kind of like we're already dealing with that with phones, right?
Oh, yeah, totally.
People at the dinner table, all on their phones.
It could definitely go either way, couldn't it? I mean, imagine if you could actually share experiences with people through XR,
Yeah.
Like watch a movie together or play a game,
Yeah.
even though you're physically in different places.
Right.
That could be really cool.
That could be amazing. But it could also just become another way to isolate ourselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess it all comes down to how we choose to use it.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like any tool.
Yeah.
It can be used for good or for bad.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I mean, XR has the potential to be an incredible tool for
Yeah.
connection, for creativity, for learning. But it also has the potential to isolate us, distract us, even manipulate us.
Yeah, if we're not careful.
We really need to be mindful of both the potential benefits and the potential risks.
And we need to have these conversations,
Yeah.
like as a society,
Absolutely.
about how we want to integrate XR into our lives.
What boundaries do we need to set? What ethical considerations need to be addressed?
Right. Exactly. Because this isn't just a technological evolution, it's a societal one.
I think you're right. So as we wrap up this deep dive, What are your biggest takeaways?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that we're just at the beginning of this XR journey.
Yeah.
The technology is still developing, and we're only just starting to see what's possible.
It's exciting.
It is, yeah, it's very exciting. But it's also a little scary.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we have no idea what the long-term consequences are going to be.
That's true. It's a brave new world out there,
Yeah.
and we're all kind of figuring it out as we go along.
But I think it's important to be aware of the potential pitfalls,
Yeah.
as well as the potential benefits.
Absolutely. We need to be thoughtful about how we use this technology
Right.
and what kind of future we want to create with it.
That's the ultimate question, isn't it? What kind of future do we want?
Yeah, and I think that's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been really thought-provoking. I'm sure our listeners have a lot to ponder.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.